So there's something I'd like to talk to you about, something I'd like to encourage you to do, and that is work on a spiral. It's really good practice for fabric collage. Now, when I go teaching my classes, I always do quotes from Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. And I can't find the book right now, but I do have my dog-eared photocopy of the 3 paragraphs I read. And I'm not going to read them right now because they're covered in one of the blog posts, Bird by Bird, how I use a book on writing to teach fabric collage. But it's a really good one to look for by Anne Lamott. So it's great for inspiration. But for inspiring you to do a spiral, here's another book on writing that I've been reading. It's called Wild Mind, Living the Writer's Life by Natalie Goldberg. And I'm only about halfway through. See, that's about as far as I go. But I have been marking all sorts of pages. And it was about right here, chapter 14. They're really short. I mean, you can see how short these things are. They're great little little ideas. It's about writing, but just like Anne Lamott writes, it kind of gives you ideas about just being creative. And she talks about writing practice. And all of a sudden there was this light bulb went off, and I started highlighting writing practice gets to the freshest writing. And I made a note. What does collage practice look like? And then I had a question mark, a spiral. Start with a piece of fabric, see where it takes you. And then I was thinking, when I get back to teaching, I'm going to have my students have a spiral kind of on the side. Now, I don't know if this will work because I'm not back to teaching yet. But, I want them to have something just like this, just something next to them with their fabric palette kind of scattered around. And maybe for 10 minutes, Natalie Goldberg talks about 10 minutes of writing practice a day. Just start with a theme and go with it. Well, here's your theme. It's a spiral, and go with it with the fabrics that you've chosen. So anyway, the little things started coming together, and I'm just going to talk real quick about the rules for writing practice. She has 7 things. She's got a really good sense of humor, just like Anne Lamott does, so you'll probably be laughing at some of this stuff too. Not necessarily what I'm going to tell you, because she goes into all of these little points in more depth that are kind of funny. But she has 7 rules. And I'm going to read off my little cheat sheet here now, because what she talks about is keep your hand moving. So if you're writing, you're going to keep your hand moving. But for fabric collage, you have your palette, you've got your spiral, you have your palette around here. And keeping your hand moving is like moving something in, seeing how it looks next to something else, moving stuff around, and you don't think too much about it. And I think that's one of her other points here. Number 2, lose control. There you go. Don't think too much about it. She says, just let it rip, say what you want, go for it. So when you're practicing on a spiral, you're practicing with your fabric, and also you're practicing blending, because that's a big thing about fabric collage, especially getting started and all the way through all the different drafts. And so blending means going from one fabric, one color or value to another. I'm just going to show you something here. Let's say I've got this, I'm not going to put it on the spiral right now, but here's a piece of fabric. It's dark here, lighter here. I could take this fabric right there. See how that kind of blends now from one to the next. Here I've got some pink. I could look for some pink to lead into something else. I put that under there. See, there's that pink goes into the pink and purple. I've got yellow right there. I've got some yellow here, or some kind of orangey yellow, but I could do something like that. See now how that's starting to go together. This is leading into orange. I could lead it something like this. It's got a little bit of orange as well. So if you squint your eyes, do you see how all those things are starting to blend together? And that's just playing. I could take 10 minutes of kind of putting my palette together and seeing how one color and value moves to the next, just playing it over here on the side before I go into my subject, which is a little more serious. You have to think a little more about it. Okay, number 3, be specific. And that's what Natalie says. I say that's kind of like your fabric choice. So now I've got a spiral, I've got curves. It's not just, I don't want to just like take a piece of fabric and cut a curve to go around my spiral. I want to find a curve in my fabric. So this one right here, see that leaf pattern? This has curves in it. What if I cut my palette? My palette is meant to be cut down anyway. So it's just, I've just cut it in smaller, chunks, like hand-sized chunks, in order to be able to maneuver it better than if it's a big piece of fabric. But here now I cut along that center of the leaf, and now I could put this around my spiral. See, let's see if I put it right in there, see how that starts matching up. Oh, right here, there we go. See how that curve of my leaf matches the curve of the spiral? That's being specific. I'm finding some specific patterns and designs in my fabrics that I can use instead of just going with more of a solid print or kind of making it up. I've got these designs I can use to my benefit. 4, don't think. And she goes on to say, most of us live in the realm of first, she says to live in the realm of first thoughts. There we go. Just practice and forget everything else. And my second book, Serendipity Quilts, the kind of underlying theme of that one is cut loose and let go. And that's kind of the idea here. Just start, you cut your fabrics and now play with them. See, the purples and greens from here could lead right into the purples and greens on this one. See how I can kind of do something like that. See how that starts leading into that? There's some pink there. I can ping some pink here, but I could just keep playing and playing. So, and that's going to loosen my mind. I'm playing with my fabric. I'm having some fun with it before I go into the seriousness of the subject that I've chosen. And then let's see, number 5, don't worry about punctuation, spelling, grammar. My first book, Freestyle Quilts, said there are no rules. So if you want to use a certain fabric, we'll figure out a way to use it. If you're in a class, or just look at it. If there's a will, there's a way. All right. Number 6, you are free to write the worst junk in America. That's her talking. And practice, that's what it is. Not everything is going to be a masterpiece. Maybe what you're doing is just to learn how to work with fabric, just to learn how to place it and glue it and have some fun with it. There's a messy, scary stage that happens that I talk about, and that's kind of like what Anne Lamott talks about too. And then number 7, go for the jugular. If something scary comes up, go for it. That's where the energy is. That's what Natalie Goldberg says. And what I say is just keep adding more, push through the process of fabric collage. If something starts getting messy, scary, you know what? It'll all smooth out. Almost always smooths out. Maybe that's, not the masterpiece again, but you're going to learn something with everything you do. So push through the process. Don't panic. Don't say, oh, this isn't working out, because you have to go through the stages. You have to go through the drafts of writing a book. Anne Lamott talks Bird by Bird is all about drafts. So you have to take the drafts and the first draft, second draft, third draft, and then it all comes together in the end. So that's the little encouragement I have for you. Start playing with a spiral and see where it takes you. You learn, it takes practice. You can't like jump into everything and expect something perfect, or, it's all about learning, and it's learning the technique, it's learning the process. And this is a great way of having some fun with it.